Hello, everybody. Welcome to Haiku Talk. I'm your host, Ben Ga, your friendly neighborhood haiku poet. And today we're going to be taking a look at a poem from Hannah Mahoney from the latest issue and the last issue of Shamrock. It's a great poem from, sadly, a wonderful journal that's leaving us, but all the same, it's been a great run for the journal. And the first line of this poem today is Day's End. So, it's that time. Sit back, relax, grab yourself a tasty beverage, and let's haiku. Okay, welcome back. As I said, we're looking at a poem today from Shamrock, issue 48, and that's going to conclude the 15-year run of this journal, which is very sad. It's been a great journal. The issues will still be available online for quite some time, and they do have 2 volumes of back issues that have been bound together in books. I have both copies. They're very nice. Check out the website above, and you can order those at your leisure. Also, check out this issue as well. It's really good. The poem today is from Hannah Mahoney. The first line is Day's End. And one nice thing about this haiku is that it's also, I would say, poetic. It's kind of a strange thing to say when we're talking about a poem, right? That it's poetic. But with haiku, a lot of times we don't really like a lot of poetic sounding language. Most of the time because it gets in the way of the moment itself. So if you're going to use poetic sounding type language, you have to make sure that it doesn't get in the way of the poem. And this one works very well. You'll see what I mean in just a moment. The poem does follow the fragment and phrase, but let's actually get to the poem first. Then we'll start to break it down. Okay, so the poem goes like this. Day's End. A hare's silhouette lopes along the hill crest. Day's End. A hare's silhouette lopes along the hill crest. See what I mean? It's nice. It's poetic. And nothing gets in the way of the moment. So this does use the fragment and phrase composition, where the first line, Day's End, is the fragment, and the phrase is, a hare's silhouette lopes along the hill crest. So let's break this down. What's happening line by line? Okay, first line, Day's End. Day's End. It's great. Does what first lines need to do. They drag you in, they put you in a specific place and time, and they allow your imagination to engage, to start to fill in the moment, sketch out the moment as to try to figure out where you are. Now, we don't know anything about where we are yet, if we're inside, outside, wherever, but it just puts you at Day's End and everything that comes with Day's End. And I'm recording this after my work day has ended. So, there's a sense of things are quieting down, things are, in my mind, slowing down. Things are finding their way to settle into the evening, settling into night. And that's where I'm at the beginning of this. And it's a two-word line. I love those, and it's great. Now that brings us to line 2. A hare's silhouette. A hare's silhouette. Now we're starting to get into something specific and using a bit of poetic language here. So what do we see? We see a hare. For those of you that don't know, a hare is another. It's not a rabbit, but it's a rabbit-like critter. So it's got the puffy ears, the big ears, the puffy tail that hops along, and all you see, it's Day's End. You see the silhouette of the hare. Now, the use of poetic language here is, I would say, the word silhouette. That's multisyllabic, and it is a word that is kind of flowery, kind of delicate, kind of poetic. You don't say like another way to say that would be the outline or the hair's shadow or some sort of thing that's more concrete and specific. But silhouette is very specific, and yet it is very light and very airy, very flowy. Just a very nice poetic word. And that brings us to line 3, which is lopes along the hill crest. Lopes along the hill crest. Very nice. So you've got this hair at the day's end, and you see its silhouette, you see it hopping along the hill crest. Now, what is poetic about that last line? Well, the word lope is an unusual word choice. It's a good word choice, but it's unusual. I know what it is. We can tell from the context what's going on. No need to look at a dictionary, but it's not necessarily the most simple, direct word. It's a choice. It's a poetic choice of a word, and it works very well here without being distracting. And then along the hill crest. Another bit of poetic phrasing in here. Rather than crest of the hilltop, we're using the hill crest. And this poem works. It's not distracting. Pairing that with hill crest, pairing that with lopes, pairing that with silhouette of a hair, it works really nicely. And I also really like the format of the poem where it starts short and gets bigger as it goes down. That long, it does get longer. The second line is bigger than the first. The third line is bigger than the second. And that's a nice sort of, day's end. It also looks kind of like a cresting hill. It adds a bit of flavor to the poem that you engage with without even necessarily logically thinking about engaging with it. It just forces you along, so that it's just a really well put together poem. Good word choices. Good use of structure, good in both the way that it builds as well as the line structures. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful moment. Not every poem has to be big or broad or, get into the deep, nuances of the soul. I think I talked about this in the last episode. And this one doesn't do that. This is a poem that captures a moment as it is. But it does so in a way that still reminds us that we're reading poetry, and that's really nice. And it was a very, very delightful thing to come across in Shamrock issue 48. So thank you, Hannah Mahoney. Thank you, Shamrock. You will be missed. And thank you, dear audience members, for tuning in yet again for another episode of Haiku Talk. I do appreciate it. Click the little thumbs up if you like the episode. Think about subscribing if you haven't done so already. And if you have subscribed, thinking about ringing the bell to get notified when new episodes come about. And that's it. Thank you very much. See you next time.